is Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement or how to buy consulting services. You'll get tips on how to use consulting, buy consulting, and managing the consulting. And now your host, Helene Lafitte.
Hello, and welcome back to Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement. I am Helene, and today I'll be talking about how to select the right delivery model for your consulting project. But before we dive into today's episode, let me give you a short recap from our previous 6-lever series episode. In this previous episode, I explained our first lever, which was investing in the right consulting projects. So I wanted you to understand that you should use consulting wisely. If you consider it as an investment rather than a required expense, you will select how to spend it early on. So you determine which initiative you want to launch next year, which areas may require advisory assistance, and how much money you'll need to implement your strategy. That should allow you, on one hand, to grasp what type of consulting firms you want to work with in terms of capability, pricing, geography, and so on, and compile a list of preferred providers. And on the other hand, you should be able to tweak your budget from there to anticipate high return initiative or enablers that you have not integrated before. So with that at hand, you can narrow your demand management criteria and ensure that you exclusively focus on the project with the highest impact or value for your organization. So if you want to know more about how to invest in the right project, please check our previous episode. And for those who watch on YouTube, you can click on the info card that appears on the screen. And make sure you follow us on YouTube and any other mainstreaming platforms for more such content. Now, let's dive into today's topic, which is select the right delivery model. So now you have decided on the type of projects we're going to pursue, and it's time to initiate it. But before launching the project, you need to decide on the delivery model. So what do we mean by the delivery model here? Well, we mean the setup through which you will source consulting expertise. So you have to actually consider this aspect at a very early stage. That is when you define your project needs. Now, it happens at 2 levels, at the project level, but also at the company level. At the project level, your headache is to decide on whether to get the project delivered by your internal consulting team or should you hire external help. This is where you need to perform a little make or buy analysis. At the second level, or the company level, you have to consider all the options, traditional consulting, micro consulting, market research, and others. And you need to explore the market for available options and decide which you will use for which project. So in this episode, I will explain how to go about selecting the right delivery model as your second lever to maximize the ROI of your consulting spend. First of all, please note this very crucial point. While selecting the right delivery model, you should factor in several aspects, such as the need for confidentiality, skill development, and compensation models, among the others. You cannot make a decision based merely on the availability of the resource piece, but on the value that it brings. So this brings us to the most important point of this episode: how to choose the right delivery model for your project. So let us start at the project level. Each project is different, and you need to conceive a delivery model for each of them. So for instance, for a strategy project, which involves big ideas and transformation goals, you need to start by organizing your work in several smaller bits, which we call work streams. Such a classification is aimed at completing more efficiently and with minimal frustration. More importantly, they help to identify skill set needed for each work stream. This understanding in turn helps you to decide whether you should work with internal consultants or hybrid teams or external consultants. However, deciding between internal or external consultants is more difficult than it seems apparently. And this is here that you need to apply your make or buy strategy. For consulting services, the make or buy strategy is more of a strategic choice that had to be made after considering a host of factors other then a cost-benefit analysis. It helps you to choose what will be the best option for you to get the job done by your in-house team or outsource it to any other organization specializing in that line of service. So in case you decide going with the first option, you have to ensure that the resources with the right skill will be available, that they would be given the right authority and responsibility, and that they would be able to work independently. If you choose to externalize your project, you have to make sure that they have the right expertise and also experience in your industry and are able to understand your business needs. So put simply, you need a tool to choose between internal and external consultants, and a make or buy strategy provides you with that tool. So it will help to optimize your organization external spending and your pool of suppliers. It's nothing but a framework that includes 5 strategic components: understanding your project needs, centralization of the project, assessment of the externalizability of a project. Yeah, I made up that word. The strategy value assessment and externalization value assessment. So we call them the 5 pillars of a make or buy strategy framework. And as you can see, we integrate a bit of demand management that we consider as a prerequisite for make or buy. Now, what if you find none of the options work for you? There is a middle path to take, a solution that blends the benefits of both internal and external consultants, and that is a hybrid model. Suppose you lack the internal expertise, but do not want to hire external consultants as well for whatever reasons, confidentiality involved in the project, budget issues, whatever. In such case, a hybrid model can bring you the best of the 2 worlds. However, when you're opting for the hybrid execution model, you must keep to the context and the objective of your project. Leveraging a hybrid model is ultimately all about integrating your internal consulting group or resources in the completion of the project where the skills and experience could be an advantage. These hybrid teams can help immensely in reducing cost and ensuring knowledge transfer. But how can you use this hybrid model? One of the ways can be to mix internal and external help in different work streams under the supervision of an internal project manager. So let me tell you about one of my clients. He's the strategy director in a large manufacturing company. He told me that his teams were made of former consultants and that they were quite familiar with the process and methodologies needed for a strategy project. But sometimes they lack the expertise or the independence of view to bring a fresh perspective on the market that they wanted to study. So they would work with expert consulting firms on this stream part and then do everything else themselves. So now you see my point. So let us again come back to the externalization option. If you're in need of some consulting support from an outside source, today there are several ways to go for it. Not a very long time ago, when companies needed expertise or market intelligence or strategy advice, they would go to a consulting firm because that was the only way to get that. Even when they needed temporary support due to someone being absent or on maternity leave or sick leave, they would hire a consultant to help them do the work. But things are changing, and now with the evolution of the industry, the consulting value chain has expanded, and all of these little pieces of this value chain, data, business intelligence, and plethora of other things, are now accessible directly to client. So for instance, you are a strategy leader who's interested in a new market, but does not know much about it. In the past, you might ask your consultant to conduct a study for you saying, I want to investigate that new market and see what potential there is for us. That's not exactly what you would do now. Why? Because most strategy leaders were full-time executive in a firm in the day. But today, strategy group members frequently come from a former consulting background, so they know how to do it, given that they have the basic knowledge about the market and have the basic market intelligence. What do they do instead? Instead of hiring a consultant to complete the project, they are likely to only consider what they don't know. And this is market research. But do you know who was conducting market research for the consulting firms? Other companies. For instance, there is one Swiss company called LeversofOptimization. So you go to them and just purchase a market intelligence report that has everything that you need, such as market developments, the understanding of the different product lines, how the market is segmented, business intelligence on competition, other players in the game, and so on. So these market intelligence firms bring all this straight to executive who have some strategy acumen. And in the same vein, the expert marketplaces like GuidePoint or GLG that now give direct access to expert knowledge for 1 hour or so. And if you have a need on a very niche topic, for instance, the soap market in Uruguay, then one of these platforms can find former executive from relevant CPG companies to tell you about it. And if you need to have some discussion on the potential of a given technology, then you can talk to a former R&D leader specialized in this specific technology. So just like market research, people also use micro consulting, which can be just a small hour meeting with an expert over the phone and then discuss your issue, a certain question that you want to be answered, and get your solution. But the session will only be for an hour, and that's it. And last but not least, you have your temporary workforce. So let me explain how this model is used. Suppose you have a project in hand and your teams are short on resources for various reasons, and they can't afford to hire full-time employees for extended period. So what did company do before? They would hire consultants to do the work in the long run. So some consultants, for instance, have been working with the same client for 3, 4, 5 years. But this consultant would often come with some overheads linked to the project management and margins for their consulting firm. But today, you have other options to compensate for a lack of arms in their teams, right? With the explosion of consulting marketplaces, there are more than enough arms available. There are more than 40 different platforms and marketplaces where you can find consulting services. This platform can be organized in 2 categories. First, you have generalist marketplaces like Upwork, Freelancer, or Molt that will give you access to all kinds of skills, from proofreading to graphic design. They're usually quite light when it comes to consulting profile, but you can browse profiles before deciding to move forward. And then you have a second type, which is talent-focused marketplaces like Talmix or Catalog. They started offering on-demand consulting services under different names, but have later shifted their focus to the talent market. So they have large rosters of consultants that can either work on small projects or join your teams as supplemental resources. If you need larger volumes of contingent workforce, you may want to have a peek at vendor management systems such as SAP Fieldglass or Beeline. There are cloud-based systems that simplify workforce management by taking care of all the steps of the process, from interviews to time tracking and payment for the staff from selected vendors. So we're here talking about interim and short-term projects where the consultant will just integrate a team and bring the experience. So what we see is that there are many options, but the first step is to decide which ones make sense based on your culture, your policies, and your project needs. Not every option is suitable for every situation. So a hybrid setup requires some experience in project management. Indeed, you are increasing the complexity by mixing up teams with outside help, right? Second, you also need some experience in consulting work in order to achieve your goals. I talked about the manufacturing company having former consulting in their strategy team, right? Obviously, they would be quite comfortable handling a hybrid setup. But there are other companies where the strategy consists in high potential individuals cherry-picked from different departments of the company, but without having consulting experience. And in that case, it might be difficult for them to handle hybrid teams. So what's the key there? So first, understand where you stand and analyze the different options to determine which ones make sense for your company. And that's your make or buy strategy. Then build simple tools to help your business line to make informed decisions for their projects. In other words, lead their make or buy analysis. So I hope that you know now how to select the right delivery model for your consulting projects to create more value. Or you can just come and ask us at Consulting Quest. So thank you for listening. That marks the end of a podcast. So keep an eye out for me next week when I return with our next lever topic. Till then, stay safe and happy sourcing. And if you have any questions regarding today's topic, remember you can always contact me directly on LinkedIn or by email, because I'm always game for a chat. Bye and see you next week. Au revoir.
You've been listening to Smart Consulting Sourcing. the only podcast about consulting procurement. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit the website at consultingquest.com. Find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. For questions and comments, send an email to ellen.lafitte@consultingquest.com. See you next time.